Hello, I'm Coneg. You can call me Con, and I'm a Raid Academy instructor and a Skyn Gang static raid caller.
Let's get into a little bit about what you do. Tell me about the type of content you lead. I think you had mentioned previously or earlier before we met that you do a static but also some training. So tell me about that and like how do you split that? How do you split your time?
So my group meets weekly Tuesdays for 3 hours. We have done a variety of content. The group, when I joined, was a Heart of Thorns progression group, so we were trying to do 1 to 4 in about 2 hours. Um, and some of us had done a lot more fights. Some of us, this was kind of our first time raiding. For me, I was a refresher. This is sort of I mentioned my break earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had rejoined and I was trying to get my feet wet again with raiding. So I joined a Heart of Thorns group and got back into it. And then eventually we started to get pretty proficient. We were clearing Heart of Thorns in a couple hours, and we were like, what do we do now? So a couple of nights we added some Path of Fire raids, and we slowly started teaching people that. So we would do about an hour and a half of Heart of Thorns, then we do half an hour of miscellaneous Path of Fire, and then eventually at one point we were like, we could totally do this. We could totally do all of it in one night. And so we added
Mm.
an hour of runtime, and we made it our goal to clear all of 1 to 7 in 3 hours.
And were you always the commander?
No, I started um, just kind of as a DPS, just someone in, but the group was super. What's the word I'm looking for? There was a lot of camaraderie, and so it's really easy to kind of feel like I was fitting in
Mm.
with the group. And then eventually, I guess kind of became more comfortable um, with calling things out. It sort of I sort of quote took over shot calling when we tried to push for faster because the group had stayed together for quite a long time because they were such good friends, but sometimes some chatter gets in the way of fast clears. And so I was kind of the voice behind everyone being like, guys, let's go, guys, let's speed up. And that was kind of the big thing that really helped us clean it up was just going with less ready checks, just knowing what to do, moving from boss to boss faster,
Mm-hmm.
swapping characters at the correct time, basically just transition time because when you add up all the time, I think the raids we do in a night are about 2 hours, 2 10. So the rest of the time is just coming from transitions. So cleaning that up was a big part of our full clear.
Got it. And
And
so,
then,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say, and then every week I try to get a raid training in. I have been very bad about that recently, but real life has sort of gotten busy recently. But I on Raid Academy, I'm an instructor there, and I like to try and get one training in a week. That was sort of my habit for a while, but
Mm-hmm.
I've fallen off, and this has sort of made me realize I should get back into doing it because I like doing it a lot.
That's fun. So your group was already meeting before you were the like designated commander, I guess, or you ended up taking up that role?
Yeah, they were together for probably a year or two before I even joined. Let me fish for the date for you because it's super easy for me to find.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Um, so they started meeting in oh God, what's the ninth month of the year? Oh, September.
Mm-hmm.
September of 2022. So that would be what is that? 3.5 years ago. And I said I was on the team for about a year and a half. So yeah, 2 years. They're running for about 2 years without me. Um, and then I joined and the group had been through some turmoil, so they acquired a bunch of members and they lost the members and they acquired a bunch of members and they lost the members, and so they were kind of in prog to exp purgatory, so to speak.
Mm.
And I think the main thing that was the change maker was just a large sense of direction and purpose. It's really hard when all you're doing is just clearing all the wings and you go, okay, cool, we did that, I'm gonna leave now, bye. But adding
Mm.
goals in, so faster clears, riskier clears, and like I said, eventually teaching people Path of Fire, that became a sense of novelty. And that's something that I've tried to keep alive in the group because novelty is what keeps you going. You've heard of, I don't know if you've heard of the joke of like, everyone kind of eventually starts doing low man because everyone else is left. So you got to make sure that you keep people around.
No, I haven't. I haven't heard that joke before, but it's true.
Yeah, so the goal is to keep ideally 10, but usually 8 or 9 core, and and keep the group motivated towards something.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's something I can definitely relate to and resonate to. I don't personally lead a static. I've been in a static for a long time
Mhm.
since oh my gosh, since 2018.
That's nice.
So, yeah, you definitely have members leave and then come back, new members come on, other members are gone for like a long time, and it can be a real logistical struggle to keep up the numbers. But I it's also super important because it keeps the group healthy, so to speak, and like motivated and driven. The moment you start losing a lot of numbers and you're not replacing it, then faith starts to wane.
Yeah, that's something that so I'm a moderator in Sky Gang, so part of what I do is helping teams in times of strife. And so part of that is just run every week. If you have 5 people, if you have 2 people, run every week. Because the second that you stop running, you say, "Oh, we have 6. That's not really enough. We'll call it this week." People start to feel unmotivated. They don't really want to show up, and then
Mm.
maybe it's been 2, 3 weeks since they've raided. They're like, I'll just not join the group anymore." And so it's easy for groups to quote unquote fail skate, like fail cascade through like, losing 1 or 2 people, then they don't run because that was the person that was doing all the work. And then now they have no one to call. So now they're just not going to run and then everyone leaves. That's not pretty common, but that's the most common way that we see groups disappear.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, you have a whole other perspective into how statics run because you can see a lot at the same time and you can see the patterns.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some mods that have a much wider time span. I think I've only been a mod for maybe 6 months, maybe a year. I think it's
Hmm.
a year. Um, Time
That's still
flies when you're having
decent.
fun. Yeah.
Are there any other kind of like patterns like that you've noticed that in statics?
Mm, I mean, the big one is kind of what I already mentioned, but having call it a bus factor. How many people can get hit by a bus until you guys can't run? Little morbid, but the idea being you need to make sure that you can work around people not showing up because life happens. It's not uncommon for 2 people to not show up to raid night. If those are the 2 people that can do everything in your group, you guys aren't going to run. And like I said, running is the most important thing to keeping a group together.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting. It makes sense. I've seen that with my own group as well. Like,
Mhm.
our commander has always pushed for role diversity. Like, hey, we only have one person that can fulfill this role. We need some
Mhm.
volunteers here because if that person can't go, then we're not doing this raid wing that night.
Yeah, yeah. That was a little bit of how so that's my group, how we started to sort of shape up into the group that we are now is after we did our first full clear, we did a couple more times, and then we were like, hey guys, let's switch it up. So we switched some roles around to things that people were kind of comfortable with, and we spent some time learning. So I think now we have like 4 or 5 Kadim 1 kites, so we could miss a lot of people, and we have people able and willing to do the role. Whereas if you have 1 or 2 people who are always doing it and that's their thing, if they're not showing up, now all of a sudden you guys are going to have a bad night. And in those situations, I recommend running. I recommend finding inexperienced fills, and I recommend learning new roles because now you have people the opportunity to shot call who feel nervous, but there's no pressure because there's no expectations. You have people learning roles. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine. If you have to look up a guide and then follow the guide, that's fine as well.
Yeah, it's really smart. While we're talking about roles within your
Mhm.
own groups and I guess within training groups as well, is there a role that you prefer to play when you are commanding?
DPS. The easier it is for you to think, the better it is. The more that your brain is doing your rotation or your role, the less you can speak. Like if right now, if I was Kadim one kiting, I would be incoherent because it's really hard to do.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is that it usually puts you on the group, and that's where you want to be. You can peep your camera over to the Kadim kite and like check them out sometimes, or your pusher, whatever it is on SH, um, and sort of survey them. But it's really hard while you're performing a role to check back. So I would play a really low intensity build. Usually it used to be Condivert because it was kind of easy to push buttons and fall back into a rotation. I'd probably still pick that now, even after the DPS nerfs. It's still good enough to be a good commanding build.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, interesting. That makes sense. Um, I've heard the opposite as well. So it's really fun to hear somebody finally say DPS, because then you can really focus on what you're saying and you can kind of go on autopilot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so the other thing is comfort. Like if someone's a heal main, not really me, then they might be the most comfortable healing and tanking while making calls. Like it might be automatic for them, but for me, it's automatic to do DPS. So I think it probably depends on who you're asking to.
Yeah, definitely. I think for sure there's going to be preference. I'm just interested to see if there's a trend among commanders,
Mm,
because so far my intuition and talking with a couple people has been that commanders tend to gravitate towards healers, because healers take on a lot of extra responsibilities, a lot of extra mechanics, and as a healer you have a very clear and tangible impact on the squad. But to your point, a healer is taking on a lot of extra duties, and that takes more concentration, and it can be harder to make the call outs, and you can't really go full on autopilot when you're trying to tank or you're away from the squad and things like that. So yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy there.
yeah, you're right. The carry potential is much lower on DPS. It's Condivert's kind of an exception. You can bring a lot of stab ports, a lot of weird things, but in general, you're right. The healer's going to be doing a lot of carrying, and that's kind of a good point. Is that in a lot of the trainings that I do, I try not to carry people. Even with any utility I can bring, I'll hold off on it because making a mistake is the best way to learn. So let people make a mistake. They
Mm,
go and then you say, oh, you could do this instead, and then they remember the moment, and they go, oh yeah, I could just press this instead. And so it sticks in the brain a little bit better. What some people like to do is they like to, help out and they want the pull to be extended. When that's not necessarily the best thing that's going to be happening, because if you don't know that someone's covering for a mistake, you're never really going to queue into it. So in training,
mm,
it's really important to allow people to make mistakes and to create an environment where people are comfortable making mistakes, because if they don't make mistakes, they're not learning.
yeah, it's really valuable. Seeing as you prefer DPS, I'm curious to know, how would you rate your personal skill level at the game? I know this is a hard question, but because skill level varies so widely in Guild Wars 2, but try to answer, I guess.
I like to think I'm a pretty flexible person. I can do a lot of different roles to a pretty well degree. I'd be hard pressed to find a role that I couldn't do if you asked me to. Um, you can, well, I guess you can't, but I look at my wingman percentile logs when I do DPS, and I'm probably in the 85th percentile, which I think is pretty good. But that includes things like healers, special roles, so it's hard to say really. I like to think I'm a better than average player, but I like to think that the more important thing is how you compare to yourself in the past, because it doesn't really matter how well you do relative to everyone. It just matters that you're doing better than your old self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good answer. I like to think of the game when it comes to skill level as kind of like a sliding scale, but not like an equal slide. You have like, let's say 80% of the populace as more casual players, open world players, maybe never step into instance content, aren't very aware of the types of damage they're doing or how they're dealing damage. They're just having a good time. That's like most of the player base, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the other 20% with a small little portion in the middle that is in flux, that is in transit between
Mhm.
these two groups. And then you have the other half not the other half, sorry, the other 20% are players that have gone out of their way to learn more about the game, learn more about their build, learn about rotations, practice on the golem, trying to actively improve their personal gameplay. And so I would say within that second group, which is this is where most of the players that are doing instance content are going to fall, within there, I like myself, I'd consider myself like an average DPS player personally. Maybe above average in terms of healing and support, but in terms of DPS, I'm like average or maybe even below average within that 20%. But if you look at the scale as a whole of like 100% of players, then anybody that's going to be in that final 20% is above average, right? So that's
Yeah,
kind of how
yeah.
I think about it, but um
I, I think if you put me at the head of a Dragon's End meta, I think we'd fail like 90% of the time. I don't think that I could do a Dragon's End meta as a commander because I don't know what's going on there. There's a lot of like domain specific knowledge, I'll call it. Like, I mean, you
oh
kind of don't
yeah.
need to know too much in open world, let's say, but some of the higher end metas I do know have some commander level knowledge. Um, so yeah. I think there's some transferable skills, like, doing your DPS rotation, dodging big circle on ground, but there's
Mhm.
also some little other stuff too.
Orange bad. Mhm.
Yeah, except when it's not, and that's confusing.
Except when it's a heel scourge shade.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah. It's like 99% bad.
Yeah. Is there any content in the game that you haven't completed yet but that you want to? And would you command it?
Would you say content? I think like I haven't completed the map yet. I want to do that at some point. Um,
Yeah.
but like command wise, I've never commanded an open world meta, but I'd be interested in it. Like, I don't know. Skyne does a lot of convergences, so
Uh-huh.
I've debated doing that at a time, but I'm already stretched thin trying to train raids, so I don't know if I could devote the time to it. But if you're talking like any instance content, it would probably be a challenge mode convergence at some point.
Okay. Yeah, I think when it comes to commanding metas or the instanced metas like Convergences or Dragonstorm or any of those like 50-person instances, um, really just playing it a few times and getting to know the patterns of whatever that content is usually enough to then start commanding it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I think about commanding raids as well, is I think a lot of people are very scared that they don't know everything that's going on, and you don't really need to. As long as sort of generally where to stand, that's good enough. Like, if you were the tag in Wing 2 and you knew where to stand generally, like, in the not poison and then what mushrooms need to be eat, that's kind of all you need to know. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people get hung up on the whole commanding thing about, oh, I don't know enough information, blah, blah, blah. And it's because they want to do well at it. And the only way to do well is to kind of begin, right? Because if you never start doing it, you're never going to learn. Um, so I highly encourage anyone who's interested in commanding to find either a group that they know that they're willing to let them lead, or if you don't have that opportunity, just open something up on LFG, like new commander taking anyone, sorting roles, something like that would be a fine LFG, and I'm sure you'd get a lot of bites because I would join something like that. I love joining turtle strikes. Like people are like KO
Yeah,
normal mode.
me
I need
too.
my turtle. I love doing those.
I joined um a, a Turtle Strike KO Kinding Overlook Strike on the LFG like a couple weeks ago. They're
Mhm.
like, "We need help. We're doing this for the turtle." And so I joined and there was already a commander. A lot of times those groups don't have a commander. It's
Yeah,
just somebody that is like, "Well, I guess I'll put something up," which is better than nothing. But they already had a
exactly.
commander and the commander was not familiar with the fight, but I like tried to stay back, tried not to
Mhm.
backseat command as best as I could, but I would offer advice when they ask questions and things like that. Um, and they ended up saying like, "Hey, you know this fight, can you just command it for us, please?" I'm like, "Well, I don't want to say no to that." Like, I wish you
Yeah.
would have the experience, right, of being the commander, because you started it and you
Yeah.
got a couple members in the group, but it wasn't like filled. They didn't know anything about setting roles or trying to fill
Hmm.
things. Not that you really need it for normal mode strikes,
No, but
but
it certainly helps.
it
It
certainly
certainly helps.
helps. Yeah, they were very grateful at the end. They got their turtle, their turtle egg, or whatever it is that I
Yeah.
forget that you need for it. But I
Yeah,
like
something
joining
like
those
that.
groups too. It's it's nice. It helps you feel like part of the community, and that's something I really
Yeah.
value.
Yeah, for a lot of people, it's a big obstacle. They eventually added a way around it, I think, like by with Imperial favor or something. But
Um, I think you have to do a successful dragon's end. Oh, maybe there is a vendor around it. I don't know.
whatever. But yeah, I still think that it's a good foray to getting people into it, and maybe it sparks something in them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I hope is that you teach it well enough, and they think, wow, this was fun working together as a team.
Yeah. Yeah, I have on my list of questions. I was going to ask you, do you have any advice for somebody who wants to start commanding? But you kind of already answered it, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll repeat it if you want. Like, I would just say, start commanding. Like, get out there, do it, put yourself out there. It's okay. Whatever LFG you have access to, whether it's in game, your guild's Discord. I recommend joining Raid Academy, but that's my personal plug. You can just put up a practice run, say, hey, I'm learning how to command, taking anyone, join me. Like, that's perfectly acceptable to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about for players that want to start commanding a static? Is there any other different advice that you'd give to those players?
Mm, Yeah, so the for that I would recommend if you have it, asking friends like, "Hey, you want to join at this time?" Scheduling is a big problem, so reaching out to as many different places as you can. If you're looking for um, a call it hub, Skyeng is my personal recommendation. I'm obligated to plug it, but there's also other Discords I know of XL. There's another one that I'm sorry I'm forgetting, Gamer Haven. I know those are a lot of big
Oh,
Discords.
I haven't heard of that one.
Um, I think so. I think so. And then from there, just get 10 people and set goals. So, hey guys, we're going to clear wing one tonight. Like, we have 2 hours. All we have to do is clear wing one. But then the other thing is pay attention to morale because it's really
Mm,
easy to go, we have a goal. We're going to kill wing one. So we're going to spend all 2 hours killing wing one. That's not fun. It is not fun wiping to a boss for 2 hours on end. So if you
mm-hmm.
guys are struggling with VG, go do Cairn, go do Conjured Amalgamate, a couple other easy first bosses that you'll always have an instance for. So like just divert if you guys are stuck. That's what my group will do when we're progging something hard. We'll go, probably 1 to 2 hours of really hard prog. Maybe we'll take a break, do some hot wings, then we'll go back into it or we'll call it depending on how we're feeling.
Hot wings.
Yep. Not the food, the raids.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think so many players, and I've thought about this too myself, is they see
Mhm.
commanding as a very technical role. Um, like you have to have the skills, you have to know the
Mhm.
fights, you have to be aware of everything in the squad. But it's so much more a social role than it is a technical role. Really, what you're doing is you're keeping a group of 10 players together and focused and working on the same thing and relatively happy, right? And it's
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting seeing it in that light instead,
Hmm. Hmm.
because I feel like that doesn't really come across unless you've joined a lot of squads or you have led something yourself or you're embedded into the community. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to make this video and talk with different commanders is I feel like a lot of players don't have access to this community, or they feel like they don't have access to this community. And by having these conversations, we can kind of bring some of these insights to a portion of the player base that might not otherwise see them or hear them.
Yeah, 100%. You're like 60% morale, 40% mechanics, maybe 70-30 the same way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as much managing people as it is managing a raid, which is why I think some people, misunderstand it because it's not really about barking orders at people as much as it is saying, "Hey guys, let's go kill this boss together. Let's have fun, and let's come back again next week." That's the most important thing. Is that you come back next week as well.
Right. Yeah. So, in your opinion, what would you say is the hardest part about being a commander?
Managing the roster probably. If I wasn't so
Mm.
lucky to have, made many connections through the game, just by doing instance content is kind of the only thing I do in this game. I wouldn't have a network of people to pull in at certain times. Um, and so, you're missing a member tonight. What do you do? Do you open it on the in-game LFG? Do you have someone you trust to come? So, someone has to drop for personal reasons, for, life happens. This is probably the biggest problem that I find with static commanding, but I'm sure there's other hurdles that other people will have, such as like interpersonal conflict. If you're not already a well-melded group, can be quite abrasive.
Mm.
But the main uh, spark for that I find is misalignment of the group. This is another thing I kind of wanted to mention earlier in things that for new statics.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you guys have the same goal because setting a goal is important. But, after you kill VG, one guy might be like, great, I did my Envoy 1 collection. And the other guy might be like, cool, let's go do Gorsival. So make sure that
Mm-hmm.
people are aligned, that we're not like, either we're all rushing through it or we're all taking a moment to celebrate our friend who finished their achievement. Both of these groups are valid, but you just need to make sure that everyone's willing to accommodate each other and meet in the middle sometimes.
Yeah, aligning expectations is huge. I find that is one of the keys to success when it comes to joining any group. Whether
Mm.
you're joining for a fractal, whether you're joining for a strike or a raid or a static or a pug training. It's all about managing expectations. If you can make the expectations clear of what you want from the group and what that group wants from you, then you can be aligned and you can have less anxiety, hopefully. Doesn't always work that
Absolutely.
way, but
Yeah.
um, it's when the expectations don't match that friction arises.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that that's like a large problem people have with the in-game LFG is they just say wing 1 DPS. And you join that group, you could be joining any group in the game. You could be joining, people who's its first time it's Veil Guardian. You could be joining people who are expecting you to be parsing very high. So join the group, ask questions like, "Hey, I'm new. Is it okay for me to be here?" Or, "Hey, I want fast clears. Can we do that?" If they say no, just leave. Like sometimes there's a mismatch in the group, and I think people just need to be more open about it. So anytime I put up an LFG, I make sure to specify, either big DPS, so something funny like that, like big PP, um,
Mm-hmm.
or some way to signify to other people that when you join, I want to make sure that you're experienced, that you're comfortable with the raids. Or the other way, I'll say, all welcome. I'll say wing 1, all welcome. That's like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter who joins. They should expect all welcome. They should expect people who it's their first time raiding, just to make sure that the group's on the same page. So you can take the initiative even if you're just joining an LFG by asking questions or providing information about yourself. And if they get rid of you, there's probably a misalignment of expectations. Don't take the kick so personally. It's not the right thing to do, but it probably just means that you guys were misaligned.
Yeah, I've seen it both ways. I've seen a experienced squad that is just there to get in and out, clear things as fast as possible, have a new player join and say, "Sorry, that's not really what we're looking for right now. You don't
Hmm.
quite fit what we're trying to do tonight. And then I've had a training group where a really experienced person came in that really wanted to go fast. Sorry, this isn't that group. You're going to be
Yeah.
better off with a different group. If you start coming in chat and start complaining that pulls are slow or that people are making mistakes, you're in the wrong group right now.
Yeah.
It's all about the alignment of expectations.
Fully agree.
So you talked a little bit about the LFG. Do you
Mhm.
primarily operate off the LFG? Like, how do you find people to join your squad, whether that's the training runs or, like, say, a fill for your static?
So the training runs are pretty self-contained on Raid Academy. I'll pull from the Raid Academy LFG in the trainings channel. I'll say like, "Hey, I'm running a wing for training. Join the voice chat." And then if we fail to fill from there, depending on how many people I'll have, I'll either call it at like 4 or 5 people. I'll say like, "Sorry guys, I gotta go." If I only need a couple of people, I'll go to in-game LFG. And then on Sky Gang, I'll usually message my friends. I'll be like, "Hey, are you free?" And you make friends by joining runs, by joining LFG runs, by joining Raid Academy runs. You meet people this way. So I highly recommend if you're feeling anxious, just jump at a run. This is how you network. Step two is I usually use the Skygang LFG. There's like a separate Discord LFG for people there. You can either join just to join groups or you can LFG for your group there. Um, Typically SG only groups, like we don't want direct people off server, but you can certainly join there even if you're with a different server. And then last but not least, I'll go to the in-game LFG. So usually I end at the in-game LFG, but there's a number of steps I take in between depending on where I'm running.
Yeah, I think that's fairly common. Um, it's a meme on NA servers that players will exhaust every option before they go to the in-game LFG.
I just proved it.
Yeah. I joined like a guild fractal run and we were at 4 out of 5 people and each of us were pinging people on our friends list. Oh, somebody just came online. Let's see, maybe they're interested.
Yeah.
Anything but to use the in-game LFG.
Yeah. I know I'm doing as I say instead of as I do, but I do recommend you try the in-game LFG. A lot of times people are more anxious to join if they're not feeling ready for it. So if you just say, again, set your expectations clearly, um, then I think you'll have a fine time with it. And again, that's how you meet new people, right? You have to run with strangers at some point.
Right. Yeah. Do you have any additional features or changes that you personally would like to see to the in-game LFG?
Mm. I think it's its own system. I think that Guild Wars 2 is fundamentally not a game that would work with like a WoW style matchmaking. I've heard people ask for that sort of thing, but I don't really think that
Mm-hmm.
exists because how do then ANET has to start defining the roles, for Kadim Kite, because then you can't just LFG a DPS and then ask them to Kadim Kite and then kick them. So the
Mm-hmm.
LFG that we have is kind of the best shot. I've heard people ask for, better separation between progression and experienced. The answer to that is put the word progression or experienced in your post. Problem solved.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it works, but I haven't put too much vision into finding good solutions. I've only been a hater on other solutions.
Okay. That's fair. Sometimes you can see what the issues are, but not have an idea of how to fix it. I mean, we're not game devs. At least I assume you're not a game dev.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
I'm not. Like it's their job to figure that out, right? Like it's literally their job.
It is. I wouldn't give them too much credit though. They kind of have a reputation of moving on to the next thing.
Yeah,
There's still
that's
a lot
true.
of outstanding bugs and things like that. So I wouldn't hold my hopes up for an LFG update. We're kind of just working within the system that we have and might as well make it the best that we can.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think you are correct. I would love to see an LFG update, even if it's just a matter of consolidating different categories together and being able to, honestly, all I have to do is let the uh, the in-game LFG have API capabilities, and then the community will come up with the solution.
Yeah, do you think that that would force people off the game anyways? Like, I feel like that doesn't really solve the problem. It just makes it a community problem.
I mean, yes, it would make it a community problem, but
Yeah.
like imagine if you had a Blish HUD module that would put up a reminder like, hey, somebody's looking in the Dragon's Den uh, LFG right now. Like a squad just popped up. And it's like, well, I don't have the LFG currently open and looking at End of Dragons. But if a Blish HUD little reminder popped up saying, hey, this squad is up there, I'm a lot more likely to join it, right? Because I just didn't know that it
Yeah.
existed. But
Now
you
that you
would need
mention
a
it,
API connection for that, yeah.
yeah. Now that you mention it, I would love in-game notifications. If they said, you
Yeah,
could subscribe to a certain category and then it would just pop up, even if it's like all of them or none of them, that would probably still be better.
yeah,
I remember I used to sit with the Raid LFG open on one monitor and I'd be watching a show on the other. Like that's how bad it was for at one point. Um,
yeah. Something
yeah.
like that would be great. I agree.
For the record, I was doing that because I was more interested in helping other people, rather than doing my own. If I like had a specific content I was burning to do, I would just start a group for it. A lot of people tend to think that they need to wait for someone else, but build it and they will come. Host the LFG.
Mm-hmm.
People will probably join.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most common barriers that people face right away is I'm too nervous. I don't want to make a group. I'm not qualified to make a group. I don't know what I'm doing. Therefore, I will wait and I will join somebody else's group. But a lot of
Yeah.
times, you don't really need to know that much. You don't really, you can just take the initiative and state
Hmm.
exactly where you are at. And that's good
Yeah.
enough for a lot of things.
Absolutely.
So, continuing the conversation around using the LFG, having people join your group, when you're commanding, when somebody is joining your group, what are your expectations of them?
A really good question, and the answer, as always, is it depends. When I'm hosting a training, I expect that they have a raid build, so something somewhat similar to something on Snow Crows, ideally gear and exotics at a minimum. Um, and then that's kind of it. We kind of usually take care of the rest. We'll do subsorting, we'll do mechanics, instruction, all that sort of thing. And if I
Mm-hmm.
expect any different, I'll include that in the post. Um, in my group, usually I'll include some comedic line, like I mentioned earlier, like ping boots or big PP DPS, because usually the only people that respond to those would be people that are comfortable with themselves in their rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as what I expect, I try to make it clear in my post. If it's not clear in my post, then you're gonna get the wrong people joining. So what I expect is usually what's on the tin.
Yeah, makes sense. Have you. Let me rephrase that. What leads you to kick somebody from your squad, if it's ever happened, and how often does that happen?
I've kicked people for being toxic before, either one way or another, whether you know, we're going too fast for them and I say like, hey, I think there might be a misalignment. Can I ask you to leave? Or if we're going too slow for them and they say, why are you guys doing this? Why aren't you doing this? I'll calmly ask them. I'll say like, hey, this is our group where we're at. Please, bear with us while we learn. And then sometimes they've blown up at people in my static and I say like, that's it. I'm asking you to leave, and then I kick them. Um, I wouldn't really say that happens often. I can think of one time when I've kicked someone for being toxic to my team. Um, I don't think I've ever kicked anyone for being too bad. Yeah, usually
Mm-hmm.
usually I'll call it, suffer through it. I'll just bear it, and usually that's a sign that my LFG wasn't clear enough. Sometimes you get people that just won't read, which is why the ping boots
Mm-hmm.
is there. I alluded to that earlier. If someone asks you to ping something, they're just trying to make sure you read the LFG, and if someone does ping it, um, then you know. The boots is a little bit more subtle, where you can see their gear. Does it have the correct stats? Does it have the correct rune? So you get an idea if they have a build at all. But
Mm,
that's not usually what it's for. It's really just to make sure that they've read the LFG.
yeah. I one time I tried to do like tell me your favorite color when you join.
Yeah.
And then I pretty immediately ran into the issue of somebody joining and not saying anything in chat. And I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh shoot, I'm the commander. Is it my job to kick them? Like it is, right?"
Yeah, usually if I set an expectation like that, I'll prompt them. I'll say like, "Hey, did you read the MOTD or the message or the LFG?" And if I get no response, I'll kick them. If they really
Mhm.
want in, they'll join the group again. Maybe they'll read the LFG. If they don't read again, it's kind of on them. The
Yeah.
reason that I do kick if people don't read the LFG is to make sure that they are intended to align with the group. If they're an inexperienced player joining a, LF, EXP, DPS, ping boots, I'm kicking them to avoid further confrontation, further problems. It might seem a little harsh. It might seem like, oh, why would you do that? They just want to raid with you. But we've talked a lot about expectations, and this is
Mhm.
just keeping in line with that. The member simply wouldn't fit if they don't read the LFG.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's not it's not really personal. It can feel very personal if you're on the receiving end, especially
Yeah,
if you're a new player. But it really is just about making sure that you understand what group you joined. A lot of times, commanders are more than happy to provide leeway.
oh,
Inexperienced
100%.
people join experienced groups all the time, but if you don't say something, if you don't say, hey, I only saw the Muckluck get to the point video on this, is that okay if I still join? If you just join and pretend you're experienced and then start failing a lot, you're much more likely to get kicked. Whereas if you start by communicating and setting those expectations, a lot of commanders are going to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's 100% right. I'm like a million times more lenient if someone's honest about their experience. And sometimes, there is still a mismatch. Like if someone joined one of my experience groups and said, "Hey, I've watched the Muckluck video," I'd be like, "Sorry, get out," more politely. But sometimes we're at the end
Paraphrasing.
of the night, we're like, yeah, at the end of the night, we're like, let's have some fun. I can remember one time we put up a Veil Guardian or Sabbatha ping or LFG, and it was like Sabbatha LF anyone because we were just like whatever, we're gonna 9% it anyways, might as well grab someone. And we had like a core ranger join and do like 4k DPS, but they did all the mechanics right, and that's our hero.
Okay.
So sometimes you get moments like that. It's worth it to sometimes take a risk, but you got to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you have any like pug stories or just raid stories in general?
Mm, that's got to be the highlight. That's probably one of my favorites. Other ones include turtle strikes, just generally. Like I remember chat mandering a KO normal mode where I would like before every mechanic call it out, like here's what's gonna happen, like in
Hmm.
chat, and that was a lot of fun balancing that and doing damage at the same time.
I've never heard that term, but it's so accurate. I love it. Chat mandering.
Yeah.
That's definitely an acquired skill. I've gained that as well of learning how to type during an encounter. It takes a surprising amount of skill. I mean, I guess it doesn't seem like it's that easy anyway, but you kind of have to know in the first place, like you have to know the fight well enough to know when you can type versus when you need to actually pay attention and do something.
Yeah, yeah. And then, your rotation too, like where's your burst windows? Do you have something where lots of things are on cooldown? Trying to line those up. Um, yeah.
Do you have any pug pet peeves?
Nothing I haven't really mentioned before. The only pet peeve I would have is misalignment of expectations or flaming outright. There's kind of no need for that. If there's a mismatch, just say, hey guys, I'm looking for fast clears. Is that what we're doing here? And if they say yes, then stick it out. Hopefully they're just having a rough patch. But yeah, there's no need to just go right to flaming.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. You kind of covered this already, but I'm going to ask it again anyway in case you have
Mm.
any other different answers. But do you have any advice for people that want to start getting into instance group content for the first time, but have a lot of anxiety over it, are scared of joining, maybe don't know where to start, anything like that?
www.snowcrows.com. They have raid builds, they have open world builds, they have raid guides, they have Arc DPS setup, they have golem guides. Anything you could want is on there. Um, they have pretty much anything I would recommend. There's like a how to form parties as well, like a little commander guide in there as well. Really well written, very knowledgeable people behind it. So after you've gone and read www.snowcrows.com, I would recommend you hop in with your raid build and your raid gear, and you do some kind of normal mode strike with it. You should have Arc DPS on. You should be saying, am I doing a little bit of damage? And if you are, great. Just go into a raid group now because that's all that matters. Usually, people don't realize they need food. It's like 20% DPS. It's a lot of damage. So don't forget food. Don't cheap out. It's like 2 gold max.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be it. When I'm testing a new build, I look up the build, put it all together. I go to the golem till I get a number that I'm happy with, and that number will be different for everyone. 80% bench is usually the you're good enough mark, where it's hard to squeeze out a lot more, but it's not too hard to reach there. 70% of the bench is like, fine, join a group at 70% of the bench. If you're below that, you're probably missing something. It's usually a button, you're not going fast enough. Um, if you have some kind of physical impairment, I believe Snowcross is working on LI builds, but don't quote me on that. There's also, is it Accessa builds or Accessible Guild Wars 2? There's a group that does super LI builds for all different intensities.
Yeah, I think
Um,
accessibility wars too.
that's the one. That's the one. And then once I get there, I go into a normal mode strike. I see how I do on a couple normal mode strikes. Um, that'll usually teach you a lot. And then once I get there, I'm good. But at this point, I know all the fights. If I was super nervous and I'm like, okay, I've done a strike, now what? Just read the raid guide for it, and then hop in a training or a practice run. But again, make sure that you communicate if you're joining a run that's more experienced than you might be. But if you have a bad experience, don't let it get you down either, because sometimes people are having a bad day, sometimes they weren't clear, and then they take it out on you, and it's not really your fault. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of external tools, anything outside of the game, are there things that you use both as a player but also as a commander? Like, I know you mentioned Arc DPS, you mentioned Wingman. Um,
yeah.
Obviously, Discord is a big one for NA servers. But are there other
Mhm.
like logs, trackers, spreadsheets, any other tools that you use?
So what I think everyone should have Arc DPS, like kind of baseline. If you're doing instance content and you're not using it, um, you're kind of unable to judge your performance, and that's a large problem because a lot of people care about performance to a certain extent. They don't really care that you do 40k DPS, but they do care that you're not doing 4k DPS. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
must kind of everywhere.
That's a good way to put it.
Blish, yeah, Blish HUD is kind of highly recommend. I can't imagine living without it. Essential add-ons in Blish HUD, I would say timers. They have a lot of boss timers. I could not do Doom without it now. Sabbatha helps a lot as well. Like all the things that you're like, oh no, what do I do? Um, there's pathing is another module inside of Blish HUD that I highly recommend. Heroes Marker Pack inside of pathing. So it's a marker pack inside of pathing inside of Blish HUD. Heroes Marker Pack has like everything for raids and strikes that you'll ever need. Um, really, really good. It shows like boss aggro range. It shows a bunch of weird things um, of like boss attacks as well. Most essential, it shows Doom greens where it kills you when you go upstairs in a green. So that
Mm-hmm.
makes greens like 10 times easier. Uh, I think I covered everything. I have the other one that is like kind of niche is commander markers, also a Blishot add-on. Um, this one lets you drop markers. on the map in the same spot every time. It's a little technical to try and place your own, but the marker packs provided are good enough if you've never done the boss before. So I highly recommend commander markers. Nexus is the other thing that I have. This one is an add-on manager, so it manages my Arc DPS. Fast load is something within Nexus. Highly recommend fast load. Um, sorry, I medium recommend fast load. It's it makes the loading cut the load screen out. So anytime you load into somewhere, you'll see all the textures rendering in. It can make your camera behavior kind of weird. So it takes some getting used to. But I personally like it. If you start to try and go faster, you'll find that it's a boon, but it can be annoying. Sometimes your character gets stuck weird and you have to reload the instance. That's like 1 in 100 though. Overall improvement to my life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Arc DPS add-on is Boon Table. This one I highly recommend if you're a Boon DPS or a healer. Not really essential for anyone, but as a commander, I love it as well. Arc DPS has an integrated Boon Table, but this makes it easier to parse, easier to read. So I recommend Boon Table. What else is there in Nexus that I use? I have healing stats for Arc, but no one uses it, so it's kind of dead. I'm letting you know it exists. There's
Yes,
a wing.
that is
Yeah.
a requirement that my commander puts on us. He's like, "Yep, you got to have the healing add-on. I want to see the whole squad's healing."
Yeah. There's a log uploader in Nexus that like auto uploads your logs to Wingman. Um, this is sort of an external tool that aggregates boss data. Um, I just use it to see how I stack up against other people because you can input your API key and it'll show you your percentile or your percentage of bench on those bosses. Um, and then outside of the game, I use Guild Wars 2 Log Manager. Guild Wars 2 Log Manager kind of lets you visualize all your logs. Super great for just quickly checking, the percent that you got to on a certain boss. It lets you upload it within there, so you don't need to like go visit ArcDPS website to clear it. You can sort as well through, so you could check like, how many Doom CM kills have I done.
You
Um,
said that's Log Manager? I don't know if I've heard of that one.
you just Google Guild Wars 2 Log Manager. I
Okay.
forget who it's by. Guild Wars 2 Scratch. So you want to go to guildwar2scratch.com/tools/manager.
All right. I mean, I'm almost out of questions, but which is good. We've gotten through a lot of them already.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of commanding or leading?
I think I've said my piece.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, we
I,
covered a lot.
yeah.
Then I will end with my two kind of fun questions, which
Cool.
is there anything that you're currently working towards in the game? Doesn't have to be raid related. I know you mentioned map completion earlier, but is there anything else?
Map completion's going horribly. Thank you for asking. I am. It's not something that I'm putting a lot of effort into at the moment. Um, kind of outside of the game. I bought Guild Wars 1 to try and get Guam, but I haven't put much time into it. A bunch of my static members are doing it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've like 100%ed this zone." I'm like, "I haven't logged in yet." Um, that's like a back burner goal. I in the last maybe 5 6 months, I haven't been logging in as much as I used to. Um, but if I was playing very actively, I'd probably be working towards my Prismatic Champions Regalia or something.
Ah, yeah, the return twos.
Yeah, yeah, highly recommend that for anyone, but I know I'm behind the game on it.
That's all right. Hey, I recommend using Tez trails on pathing if you're trying to do your map completion, assuming you
I
have all the
tried it.
mounts.
Yeah, so that's for a long time I didn't have the beetle, but I went and got the
Okay.
beetle. Even longer, I didn't have the sky scale until Soto. I never got my sky scale.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, you should try it again. I don't. There's some places where you need the beetle, but in my experience, more so you need the sky scale and the griffin.
Mm. Oh, I don't have the griffin. I
Oh,
forgot that.
okay. Well, that's a 250 gold sink there, so just be
And
aware
the
of
gold's
that.
the gold's whatever. It's like all the other stuff that I have to do
Yeah, the whole
for me,
collection.
really.
All right, the last question I have is what is your Guild Wars 2 hot take?
My hot take. Hmm.
Yeah.
Can I have a moment to think on this one?
Yeah, yeah. I've been thinking
Okay.
about it like for the past 2 weeks, trying to come up with a good one. Like,
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you a hot take. My
okay.
Guild Wars 2 hot take is that inventory management got easier and people are still complaining about it. Have you ever gone back to old zones and seen how much crap they give you? Like it is so easy nowadays. Just open all boxes, deposit all materials, and you have a stack of IDs. You are not getting
Mm.
your inventory clogged like you used to. All the unsellable junk or the junk that you have to auto sell,
Uh-huh.
there's none of that anymore. They just give you the gold.
Yeah. That's a good point. I never thought about that. I mean, I do see people still complaining about inventory management, and it can be quite a nightmare, especially if you're coming back to the game after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you just have this wall of inventory that you don't know what anything does.
Yeah.
But that is a good point. I never thought about it like that. Like
My
comparing the
boomer hot
old
take.
maps and how they worked with the new maps and how they work.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm glad my take was hot.
It is. I like it.
There's nothing worse than a cold hot take.
Yeah. I think my funny hot take is that homesteads are good actually.
Oh, I think they're great. I never engaged with the system, but like seeing your homestead, I'm like, this is pretty good. I should do this more.
I live to inspire, you know.
I hope you inspire a bunch of young commanders as well.
Yeah, hopefully so. I'm hoping that the video that, you're in and that I'm working
Mhm.
on at the time of recording is I'm hoping that it helps bridge that gap between
Yeah,
that 80% and the 20%. And I hope
definitely.
that it makes it less scary. So you can see, oh yeah, these commanders, they started in a similar place to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we all started in the same spot.
Right. Um, I was telling this story to my commander when I interviewed him.
Mm,
And the first static that I ever joined, which was like 2 years before, 2 or 3 years before the one that I'm in now,
yeah.
back when HOT raids were still new, new ish anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I joined the static and I did not speak for a whole year
Wow.
in that group. I
Wow.
listened and I
Yeah.
enjoyed their company and I felt like I was part of the group, but I only ever talked in squad chat. I
Mm,
was such an anxious player when I started.
hmm.
And so my journey personally, going from an extremely socially anxious person, feeling stress and anxiety literally every time I joined, but still enjoying myself and having fun and keep coming back, to now where I'm starting to make YouTube videos for people. That's been like my 10-year journey, you know?
That's amazing. Yeah.
So we do all start from the same place, right? Similar places, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's everything.
Well, it was great talking to you. Thank you for all the questions. I enjoyed reminiscing a bit and getting a message
Yeah.
out there.
It's good talking with you, meeting you for the first time. And
Yeah.
um, this has been just a fun project to hear from different commanders. Like, I love interviewing people like this. It's and hearing stories and stuff. And I am very curious to see how this video will turn out.
Me too.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and hang up here.